update, particularly for those online, what's happening, and then we'll throw to John Filsell.
Morena koutou. Thank you for joining us here today. Thanks for your patience also. We've had some technology issues in chambers where sound, we can hear those online, but they couldn't hear us. And I think at the moment that they can now hear us, but the presentation that you'll be seeing in chambers won't immediately be available to those online. There's some buffering that the system needs to do, some such like that. So we expect that in a short amount of time, those online should start seeing the presentation as is being displayed here in chambers. So just bear with us, those online, with that. So thank you.
Thank you. And this, yeah.
It's on the big tin can.
Yep.
And just a reminder that this is being recorded as well. All right, Morena, John, over to you. You're going to give us an introduction.
I'll give you a brief introduction. This briefing is one of a series held on the development of the long-term plan. And just to remind everyone that the discussion involves draft material that reflects a position on the day. Things change. The purpose of today is primarily around board chairs. Thank you all for coming. Being able to brief councillors on board priorities and local community feedback. So this is what local communities are really telling boards, and board chairs would like to communicate to the council. Conversely, it's the opportunity for councillors to ask questions and seek information on localised priorities that the boards are obviously promoting through the long-term plan. So we really ask that councillors be inquisitorial. Now is the time to ask those questions. I just want to point out that the order in which the boards are speaking are not priority. That's how Emma decided to do the PowerPoint. I'm available for a wrap-up to answer any questions on procedure and process afterwards. So without further ado, with your permission, Pauline, I'd like to invite Waihoro, Callum and colleagues to come and talk to the meeting.
Great idea. I totally support that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Down to go through slides. Cool.
Disappointed to hear, John, that this is not in priority order, but I'll have to accept that, I suppose. Cool. All right. Sweet. All right. Well, thanks for your time today. So the Waihoro Braden Catchment Community Board. Oh, can we see? Oh, yeah. Sweet. Okay. Cool. So as part of our sort of the What Matters Most engagement and also, you know, things that we've heard from the community, we identified four choices you can see, four priorities you can see up on the screen there. Three of them are actually, you know, directly from the What Matters Most engagement, and then the fourth one we've added in as well because we've heard a huge amount of feedback from our community on that topic, even though it didn't come through directly in the What Matters Most engagement. And yeah, so I guess just to start off with, you know, the board's very aware of the financial position that council's in, and we're not here today to ask for the world for our particular part of the city. What we've attempted to do is to take a bigger picture strategic view, and in particular issues related to climate change are addressed through a number of board plan priorities, safe transport choices, emergency preparedness, parks facilities, and our growing neighbourhoods priorities, which I think we've got here. Yep. So yeah, those are our priorities you can see up on the screen. I do want to start off with a couple of things that are specific to our area, so Braden Cashmere Heathcote. And obviously, you know, you saw us recently for the South Library report presentation. Just wanted to say, firstly, hugely appreciate the result and the decision by council to approve funding for that building. And I think the community's been really excited to hear that's going forward. And obviously, the LTP will be the time where the funding is locked in for that. So I think that would be remiss to sort of not mention that today as well. The second thing that I wanted to talk about, which is sort of specific to our area of town, which we're asking for a little bit of resource, is the issue of growing neighbourhoods. And this is the, you know, in other words, densification, or the, you know, the increased number of houses going in. So, growing neighbourhoods, this priority is the sort of the board's take on the sort of brownfields donut of intensification that's happening around the city centre. And we're requesting a small amount of operational resource for a pilot project to look at how a holistic view can be taken on intensification, tying together an overview of the various works planned and budgeted for with development in our area, and looking for synergies that can be capitalised on, and as well as sort of involving the community and understanding how densification is impacting their neighbourhood and what the council can do about it. And the aim, of course, with this is the sharing of the learnings and the resource with other areas of the city which are experiencing similar change, which is, that sort of donut around the city centre. We don't know what the cost of this will be, but we're not expecting it to be huge. But we're asking for that as part of the long-term plan. And I guess a little bit of a background on this, I think the key thing I want to say about growing neighbourhoods and intensification is that the people that we hear a lot from are not fundamentally afraid of more housing and greater density. People in our communities understand that we need to house more people, and that our communities are as responsible as every other community in the country to provide housing. I think that there is sometimes a temptation amongst elected members or people that work in council planning spaces or other areas that have a sort of bird's eye view of our city to dismiss concerns about densification as being about NIMBYism. And while that's true, there are some people out there that have, that they don't want specifically housing in their backyard. That's not the sentiment that we're wanting to bring forward to you today. The thing that we're hearing from people is that they recognise the need for further housing, but they also recognise the need that, people need more homes, but they also need parks and public toilets to use. They need buses to ride. They need space on our roads for them to get around, especially biking, because we're certainly not going to be able to fit many more cars in the streets through Sprain and Cashmere Heathcote at the moment. People need community centres and facilities for events and groups to organise, and obviously the corresponding adequate investment in horizontal infrastructure, including three waters and all the kind of boring side of things as well. What we're seeing is we currently don't really see a coherent plan to address this greater need that the extra infill housing brings. And we don't even really see a coherent picture of what the need actually is. So that's our sort of explanation of the Growing Neighbourhoods project, is we want to actually start with understanding and understanding what it is that we need to be doing to accommodate extra housing in our city. So, those two, the South Library and then the operational funding for Growing Neighbourhoods is really the only things that are specific to our neighbourhood that we are asking for in the LTP. Kia's going to talk to a few more of the city-wide issues that we're concerned about.
Yeah, so one thing that we always see this come through strongly when we go out to talk to our communities is the importance of transport choices. And so that's about the ability for people to choose whether they're going to be biking, walking, taking the bus, and having the ability to choose those lower carbon modes of transport. And particularly, obviously, for the council, that's active transport. We want to be encouraging active transport. At the moment, people often feel they don't necessarily have those choices because of the design of our road network, that they feel unsafe, or they feel that their children would be unsafe. One that we hear a huge amount about is parents would love to see their kids walking or biking to school, but just don't feel safe letting them do that. And one of the great things is if we can get kids walking and biking to school, there's so many benefits across not just for them, but you're taking those cars down the school run off the road, you are addressing some of those congestion around schools, you're getting healthy habits into kids young, you're doing huge amounts of great stuff that's just really valuable. So one thing that we are concerned about is the prospect of deprioritisation of the major cycle route network. But we're also really keen to see the work on what comes after the major cycle routes continue. So the local connectors projects, they're a really important part of taking these big projects and tying them down to the neighbourhood level so that they're getting used every day. So that we really want to see those continue. The Sprain Cashmere Heathcote area is an area which, because of its historical built form, is really conducive to getting people using active modes. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit here where we can get some really great outcomes for not incredibly expensive investment. The other priority that we want to talk about is Kia Ora Ki Tai. So this is talking about from the source to the sea, from the hills to the sea. And we're particularly looking at the Heathcote, the Paoho Heathcote River and the Port Hills, which are obviously taonga for the whole city. And also the impact that has on the Avon Ihutai estuary, which as a major, in fact, site of global ecological significance for its role as a part of the flyway. So one of the things we're currently working with, and parks are doing some really great work here, and we're currently engaged with parks and some other stakeholders to have conversations about what a plan for the Port Hills could be and what that 10, 20, 30-year vision could be. There's huge amounts of great work that happens in the ecological space in the Apawa Heathcote catchment and on the Port Hills. This is one of those spaces where volunteers really do get involved and make the council dollar go so much further than council could deliver on its own. And the more we can get that kind of civic engagement to deliver, the more that's going to cut down on the cost to council. So that's something that we're really excited about. We are concerned about the potential for deprioritisation of funding for planting. One of the major drivers of water quality in the Apawa Heathcote catchment is sedimentation from the hills, and the deprioritisation of planting will cut efforts to tackle sediment flowing into the river. So the more we can do to do that is great. Having a long-term plan for management of land on the hills is a key environmental outcome for the whole city. It's going to be strategically critical for hitting those tree canopy targets. The more we can get there, it's going to be brilliant. And for me, one of the biggest risks is losing the huge amount of community momentum we have around a lot of these projects along the whole stretch of the hills from Avoca Valley all the way down to the far end by Selwyn. You have community groups that are just passionate about getting in and doing this. And I'm sure Tyrone can attest the same on the other side of the hills. That is such a positive thing that we can be leveraging. So we would just hate to see that momentum lost if council were to take some, short-sighted decisions.
Thanks, Kia. Yeah, just to recap, we are aware of the council's financial position. So we're not here to ask for a bunch of baubles and high-cost ticket items for our particular area. South Library is a big one for us, but we are concerned about the wider sort of strategic decision making of council and the potential loss of momentum around responding to demographic change and climate change, and we see those as being citywide issues. We see the Port Hills, the major cycle routes. Those aren't things that belong to the people that live in Spraydon, Cashmere, Heathcote. Those are things that belong to Christchurch City and everybody who lives here and over the hills and Banks Peninsula. And even further in Canterbury, it's a national taonga that we're wanting to protect in those hills. So yeah, that's a summary of what we're here to say to you today, and happy to take questions.
One other thing really quickly that it comes up with both the major cycle routes and also some of the stuff around Kia Ora Ki Tai. Having that long-term pipeline is really important. So the tap's not being turned on and off. It's a long-term pipeline where we can, contractors have that certainty, volunteers have that certainty, and that's going to have some tough years in it, we appreciate, but having that long-term pathway is really important for stable decision-making and infrastructure delivery.
Yeah, true. All right, we've got a couple of minutes for questions. So did you, Tyler, Jake and Yanni? Okay.
Tēnā korua. Kia ora, boys. Just got a question around the pilot project. I was listening on Zoom. And I wanted to know a little bit more about the sort of scope you want to go on. Is it going to be just community board focused, or to be community board and opportunities for the city to jump on that?
Yeah, so it would start with a particular area. So what we're proposing with that one is in Spraydon, which is a very kind of very, very typical suburb for that kind of brownfields donut ring around the central city. And yes, it would start with Spraydon, but the intention is that it would provide a tool, it would provide learnings, it would provide strategy and information that could be applied widely across the city. Yeah.
Cool. Jake?
Similar question from me, which is just, do you have more information about the growing neighbourhoods thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming that'll come through as part of when we get to the the crunchy end of the LTP.
Yeah. And I guess partly it's something that will be shaped up further once we get the professionals involved. As board members, we're looking for that resource. We're looking for planning, for project management resource to sort of help us to understand what it is that we can do that's going to have a big impact and deliver the outcome we're looking for. So, yeah.
Great. Okay. And Yanni?
Sorry, just a few questions. One is, why doesn't your community just project fund that resource itself?
So that's why we've come to talk about the long-term plan, is because we would like to talk about the bigger picture resourcing. The community board is already looking to use some of the better off funding to deliver the initial stages of that. So we have in fact put community board funding into that.
Yeah.
However, because we see it as having a bigger citywide and going across a range of council spaces.
I think if we could get some information around our development contributions policy, the money that we're generating and how we're distributing it. I think we've also deferred a lot of the infill housing projects that were supposed to offset the impact of growth. So getting that joint up conversation, I think, would be really good. Can I just ask, you said you were concerned about the MCRs being deferred. Have you had specific information about what year they're at or proposed to be at, or what year would you like to see them in?
Well, we'd like to see them not deferred. So, I mean, the specific information is only the information that's been made available to councillors via the information you've already received in briefings with staff. I can't remember the exact date, and I don't have it in front of me. But
cool. Yeah. And just the final question is, in terms of ki uta ki tai, and also I know we've got a Pawaho Heathcote guidance plan as well, which doesn't seem to have any funding or any traction.
Yeah.
But would you support council looking at, because you've talked about the importance of the Pawaho Heathcote River, an activity management plan like we've done with the Avon Otakaro, to combine all the projects that we're doing to sort of improve the ecology and the environmental aspects of that river, so that it gets more visibility around what funding is on budget and what's being done?
Yeah, you can jump on that.
So one of the things that's awesome about the Pawaho Heathcote River is you have the Pawaho Heathcote River Network, who are a really amazing community group. They have a lot of connections and also a lot of capacity. One thing that, I think any way that we can join those conversations up is awesome. So, but I'm not saying no, that we wouldn't want a management plan. One thing we're really aware of, or what we want to call it, we would just really love to make sure that the community is part of that conversation, and it's they're getting that capacity built, because we've been really fortunate to see what work they can deliver. So that's been really cool, having that community lead response, I guess. So would love to do it, but building in that community space as well.
Yeah.
And the more funding, the better, obviously.
Yeah. Definitely. The Pawaho Heathcote River Guidance Plan is a key element of the ki uta ki tai priority for our board, and we'd love to see resource for that. We know that it's the quality of the document is really, really high. It's got buy-in from groups all along the river, and we'd hate to see that just collecting dust on the shelf. Yeah,
thank you.
Okay, so Councillor McDonald.
Thanks, guys. Just a really quick one. It's just to understand, so completely get your point about the MCRs, and it might be worth circulating the presentation that Lynette did on
September the 5th, that was.
September the 5th. Okay. Just trying to understand, I guess, in the terms of hierarchy of priorities, one of the reasons the transport staff had made about their initial recommendations was trying to fit it within a budget pool, which was funded because of the external government funding around public transport. If you had a preference, what would you like to see the public transport done or the MCRs done first?
Yeah, the point you made around funding is sort of baffled me a little bit. I don't feel like I understand what the funding situation is with government around PT and how that's changing in the detail.
Yeah, so just at a really, really basic level, I won't drag it out.
Yeah.
Council sent a letter to the chief executive saying that we have to have a deliverable, we should aim for a deliverable capital program.
Yeah.
The teams have gone away and done the work on that, and they've said as part of that, in the very early stages, so it's nothing set in stone, they've kind of gone, because the government are funding a significant amount of the public transport, that actually they would probably do that before they rush on to do MCRs. or some of the MCRs, not all of them, because there's shovel-ready stuff as well. So I was just trying to get a flavour of if we were to choose, if you had a view on that.
Certainly, I was going to say, it's certainly not something we've discussed at the board, so I wouldn't want to start venturing an opinion on something we haven't had a chance to talk about.
Yeah.
One of my thoughts would be, in terms of capital delivery, as you drill down into the actual mechanics of it, one of the things that certainly was a problem early in the cycle in terms of rolling out the MCRs was the lack of capacity. So and we've heard concerns about capital deliverability. One of the things that helps with that is having a consistent pipeline of projects on the go. So we would certainly want to make sure that it's not veering wildly from one priority to the other, and potentially having some workforce impacts. That would be one of my only comments off the top of my head at this point.
I think, could we circulate that? I just think it'd be useful to have a look, because I'd be really keen as we work through the LTP to kind of get an understanding from your board, given you've raised that. So thank you.
Yeah, but you also raised that in the context of, if I recall, you said deferring any of the MCRs actually defers the endpoint, which is the connections, which brings them into the local area, the schools and the children, and it's kind of like it has a knock-on effect. So we've got Councillor Peters and then Councillor Templeton. That's probably enough time.
Thank you. Just pulling back to your Kiuta Katai, do you see the zone committees perhaps as being part of that integral solution in that?
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Key stakeholder. Yeah.
I think one of the things is when we take that catchment-wide approach, we start to see a lot of stakeholders come in. You've got the zone committees, you've got like even Selwyn District Council. You've got a huge sort of, and the more people who are part of it, the better. I think it's awesome.
Community
Very good,
partnership.
thank
Yeah. And Councillor Templeton.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to point out that the choice that councillors have been presented with isn't one that makes us choose between public transport and cycling, because the overall budget was the same, but a whole pile of other roading stuff was added in. And so it's not a choice that we're being asked to make. So, yeah, so there was additional stuff put in to swap for the MCRs, not public transport.
Yeah, I mean, I can say that although we haven't specifically discussed, necessarily the hypothetical that's presented today, our board would be in support of both increased funding for both MCRs and public transport. And obviously that's the council's, the council's job is to figure out how to prioritise those things. But that's, our board strongly would, wave the flag for those two. Yeah.
We're out of time. Hey, look, thank you both. That was excellent. Really, really good presentation, very clear and good discussion. So thank you very much. And sorry, my screen's just shut. Who have we got next? Oh, it's Waipapa, Papua New Guinea's Central. Welcome, Emma.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. Apologies from our Deputy Simon Britton, he's caught up at work.
Okay.
We really appreciate being given this chance to get in front of you at this stage of the LTP process, and we hope that what we as community boards have to say does come through and is reflected in the draft plan. Here's a rundown of what matters most to our community. The top 5 points came through in the what matters most engagement. The only difference between the 3 wards within our board area was travel choice, which featured in the top 5 for both Central and Innis, but was replaced by stormwater and drainage in Papanui. The bottom 2 points there are what we are hearing from community groups in our area via public forum presentations, briefings, and our community liaison meetings. These groups are at the grassroots in our communities, often dealing with our most vulnerable residents and providing much needed support. They often talk about the importance of our community development advisors and other council staff and the invaluable advice and resources provided to their groups by these staff. We also regularly hear from all our local groups about the importance of council strengthening communities funding and how this is such a worthy investment into our local communities. These are areas that didn't feature highly in the what matters most feedback, but we feel this is probably because they are taken for granted. Most people out there don't see the community development work done by our local staff or realise the amount of funding we give to our local groups. But if it were reduced or taken away, it would most definitely be missed. Our 4 priority projects listed here come directly from our 23 to 25 community board plan. And they're all things which are already in the current long-term plan. We're not asking for anything extra. We're simply asking that you retain these important projects which are already budgeted for. First up is the Shirley Community Reserve. You've all heard us talk to you about this before. Shirley lost its community centre in the earthquakes and has been waiting since then for a facility to be rebuilt on the same site. Multiple consultations have been carried out with the local community over the years since the original building was demolished, with no clear consensus from the community yet as to what should happen on the site. The latest engagement took place in the middle of this year, with a report coming to our board before the end of this year, which will give us clear options for moving forward. There is funding on budget for a community facility, as well as parks funding for the reserve in the years before that, and we are requesting that that all be retained. Our next priority is transport connectivity. We want our communities to benefit from a well-connected and accessible transport network, with community safety being the priority. We would like to see the funding that is currently on budget for the downstream effects management plan retained, as there is still work to be done on stages 2 and 3 of the management plan, which have a major focus on safe cycling routes and safe access to schools, parks and commercial centres. We would also like to see funding retained for those transport initiatives in our area which are already on budget, especially for those which have been consistently pushed further and further out due to the reprioritisation of other projects. The third priority you can see there is for a youth facility in Papanui. We've mentioned intensification there because the need for such facility is only going to grow even more as Papanui deals with increased intensification, especially with the proposed 1,400 new properties off Grasmere Street. There is currently no line item for this, but we would like to see one created in this LTP process, but it is within a project called Community Parks Recreation Spaces Development. And Parks have tagged part of that line item as the Papanui Youth Play Space Project. We once again ask that this funding be retained to fill this much needed gap in Papanui for a youth orientated space. Then finally, we have the Phillipstown Community Hub, which currently operates out of the old Phillipstown school site, but will require a permanent home at some point in the future. We are requesting that the funding set aside in 2030-2031 be retained so that this incredibly valuable community group can continue the mahi they are doing in this low socioeconomic, particularly vulnerable area of our city. We know you have some tough decisions ahead of you in this long-term plan process, and that there is a need to make cuts and save money across the board. However, we ask that you take on board our local knowledge of our communities and realise that we are not asking for nice to haves. The priorities we have outlined today are necessary for our communities to be the successful, safe, connected places our residents are asking for. Thanks.
Thank you, Kia ora. Good presentation. Questions? Yanni?
Thank you. Just one question, which will be no surprise to anyone, but the Ferry Road safety enhancements, are they currently funded or do we need to put money on the LTP?
I don't have that information.
Right.
Sorry.
So that's a question we can put forward. And what are you?
Well, so remember we've got that minor safety improvements program that was supposed to put in safe pedestrian crossings across Ferry Road in Phillipstown. We've had about, I think, 3 years of submissions from residents to that LTP and the annual plan.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if there's sufficient funding to do it, whether we need to make sure, I mean, I just don't want to see it
I've got
lost.
a feeling Lynette has given us the answer to that a couple of times. Yes. Yeah. Yep.
No, but then
so that wasn't brought up
we've
by
consulted on it.
That was not brought up by the board chair. So obviously.
No, but that would be that would be one of those transport initiatives which is funded that we want to retain.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Victoria?
Thanks, Emma. Can you expand on the key issues and drivers for the Papanui Youth Facility?
Yep,
Please.
sure thing. Obviously, Papanui is down for more intense development in the future. We have sort of within 5 minutes walk of Northlands Mall 3 high schools. We have the big bus stop there. It's a place where youth congregate currently. There have been issues around there. We do have a bit of an initiative going at the moment with some of the the local groups that work with youth in the area. They're doing what they can, but there is really a lack of space for these young people to go and just be young people.
So basically, there's no youth facilities. There's the one Papanui youth facility on Harewood Road, but there's nothing else in the area.
Yeah, there's the one run by the Papanui Youth Development Trust.
But there's nothing.
Which they're working at capacity already in that space.
But isn't it the case that they're congregating enough at the malls and
Yeah,
it's antisocial behaviour, and we're really trying to find an alternative to deter that?
Yeah, absolutely. Apparently, I was talking to Jeremy from Papanui Youth Development the other day, and they last term had people standing in the mall because they cross from the school, go through the mall to the bus stop. And he reckoned about half of the 1,600 pupils from Papanui High School use that route, go through the mall, and then either head to the bus stop or in the other direction.
Okay, Councillor Scandrett.
So a youth facility. So it'd just be a bit interesting, a bit more information, because if you've got kids coming from a mall across the road, from the school across the road to a mall, it seems that they're going to a destination on purpose. And so, yeah, I'm just wondering how to solve a problem which is maybe not seen as a problem by the youth. I mean, we've all, every area's got the same issue. I'm just wondering if we could have a joined up approach about if one youth's kind of centre, or for want of a better term, can solve a problem, maybe it should be copied and adjusted for each environment.
Yeah, we don't know what that facility is. We don't know if it's a building or an outdoor space, and we want to find out from youth what they want.
Yeah.
So that's the starting point.
And those organisations working with them who may have some solutions to some areas would be really good to follow up on, maybe.
It's work in progress. All right. Thank you, Emma. Nice. Oh, Yanni.
Can I just clarify? There's a youth space across the road that council's already supported in the church, the youth space, where they've got like a music studio.
Yeah, that's
rock
the one.
climbing
That's
wall.
Papanui Youth Development. They, as I say, they're working at capacity, and the youth don't necessarily want to head in that direction there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Barber. That'll be the last one.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thanks, Emma. Just about the Shirley Community Reserve, I well remember the facility that used to be there. Do you know much about the organisation that is advocating for the space? I mean, in terms of, are they looking at other community centres around like Mount Pleasant and the Bridge Hub, centres that are run by the community? Do you know much about?
Well, that's part of the problem with this one, is that there is no community group who is willing to step up and take ownership and run any space.
So they're just asking council to fund a building and then council to run the building as well.
Yes, that's what some of the community want, but we're not even sure that we're not sure that whether the facility needs to be a building or what it needs to be.
So we're
that's
going
what
through.
this latest engagement is looking at.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, great. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we've got Waimaro, Pendleton, Waimari, Harewood. Welcome.
Tēnā koutou katoa, everyone. So kia ora. On behalf of the Waimaro, Pendleton, Waimari, Harewood Community Board, we thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our board priorities. We appreciate that in the interest of time, you've asked each board to present on just 4 of the top priorities. Before we get into the detail of our 4 priorities, we'd like to highlight what we've been hearing from our community and what are some of the topics, challenges, and areas of importance to residents. We'd like to acknowledge the fantastic work Katie McRae and the engagement team have undertaken with the What Matters Most campaign. This was a creative, clear, concise, and engaging way to connect with residents and the community on where they believe investment should be made. This collection of data is hugely valuable. It gives us the information we need as a board to cross-check our plans and strategy, and most importantly, fosters active citizenship. Therefore, we'd also like to take a moment to recognise and thank all those who took the time to participate in the campaign. Your input helps us to best represent what you value and care about, and we look forward to seeing this tool and campaigns of this nature more in the future.
For those who participated in the campaign, here are the results of the 5 core services the community had identified that matter most to them in our area. Climate change, drinking water, roads and footpaths, parks and gardens, and travel choices are the key areas that came up for us. On top of this engagement, there were drop-in sessions, workshops and meetings with the public to also get a sense of what's important to residents in our area, and the feedback included safer roads for all users, particularly intersections, more turning hours when they are needed, concerns about continual rate increases, people are struggling to afford the basics, we need to be focusing on the must-haves and taking a break from the nice-to-haves. We've taken into account this feedback and will now present our 4 priorities. We note they're not in any particular order of importance. First one I've got here is to undertake improvements to the driveway and car park at Sheldon Park in Belfast and upgrade of the playing fields. The entrance into Sheldon Park, if anyone is aware of that, is disgraceful, to be fair, with huge holes on either side, and it's a bit of a mess whenever it's used. And on the weekends, it's heavily used in the summer and the winter time because you've got rugby and touch is also played there, with Canterbury Touch is based out of Sheldon Park, and then you've got a very highly utilised bowls club there as well. So it's a very well utilised facility, and just that main entrance is in much need of some work. And then the actual services at Sheldon Park, through our board priorities process, discovered that a lot of people in that local community are really keen for those facilities to be, I guess, have some renewals done. There's a lot of new development out the back in Spring Grove and also in around the Northwood area there. So the population there will be increasing a lot in the near future. So they're really keen to have a resilient sports field for people to be able to be active in. So that was why we have put that Sheldon Park as one of our priorities. Another one was to investigate the extension of some curb and channeling along Gardens Road towards the City Firewood end there. On one side, we've got curb and channel. On the other side, it's just grass. And whenever it rains, you end up with a lot of flooding into the front of people's properties there. So I've heard from the residents there that they'd like that to be investigated as something to be done. Just go back to the Sheldon Park one. There is some funding already in the LTP for that, for hard service renewals. I'm unsure whether that would be enough or not, but we can look into that further. And then the curb and channel is currently at Gardeners Road is currently not funded. Next one was traffic safety improvements at Radcliffe Road and Main North Road intersection. So this is probably for me and the Harewood area the key initiative that we've got. There is a project in the LTP for the improvements for Radcliffe Road, the corridor there, and we're to seek to ensure that the project can include work on a bit of work on the intersection as well. The main concern there is that there's 300-400 houses down in Spring Grove, and there's more development going on out the back of that area as well, and there's no safe shared path or footpath for pedestrians to get to the Northwood Supercentre or to Belfast School. If there was a overbridge from that community, it would be about a 300-metre walk to the school and to the supercentre there for all those residents. But at the moment, it's about 1.5k or 2k either way. And you've either got to go down Radcliffe Road or then go along Blakes and up Belfast Road to get around there, which is over 2k. So people just aren't going to take that route. So you end up with school kids having to go along the side of the road, or parents just refusing to allow them to bike or walk because of these safety issues on Radcliffe Road there, being that it's so narrow. So that safety improvement along Radcliffe Road there is one of the main priorities for us, and we've got that feedback from the community as well. I guess one of the challenges there is just that it crosses a rail corridor, and so there are some challenges around Kiwi Rail logistics that we have to work through.
And then we also have bringing forward the funding for the Mona Vale Bathhouse Restoration Project. So the stunning historic site is the unfinished jewel in the Mona Vale crown. Damaged in the earthquakes, it is currently in the LTP for the financial year of 2028-2029. However, the board encourages council to bring this forward. With the cost of building materials increasing yearly, Delaying the fix up will only make the process more expensive. And there's a lot of community spirit behind this project to see it done. For example, the Friends of Christchurch Botanic Gardens have hosted fundraising events such as the Garden Party, and our board is prepared to contribute to this project with some of the better off funding. And we're asking the council to come to the table with the same enthusiasm and commitment. So in conclusion, you'll see in our submission, we're not asking for anything new. We appreciate the financial restraints council is in. Therefore, as a board, we've aimed to strike a balance of wants, needs across the ward area. However, we would like to note just some other priorities for future reference. So Brenchley Ave has funding included in the annual plan to scope out the work that needs to be done for the issues it faces around flooding. However, we're flagging this to council now that if the scoping exercise further indicates that more significant work needs to be done, then depending on the cost, we could be coming back to council and seeking to include this next phase of work in the LTP funding. So we'd like to take this opportunity to say a huge thanks to all the community board advisors from Aidan, Lisa, Natalie, and Karen, and of course our community board manager, Marianne, for helping our board shape up, refine the board priorities, and for helping us put this presentation together. We're so grateful for all the help and the mahi that goes into this, and to all council staff and elected members. It's a big lot of work, and we thank you for giving us the time and space to address what matters to our community. Thank you.
Oh, kia ora. Right, we have a couple of questions and we have time. So Councillor Templeton.
Hi, thanks so much for that. I'm just wondering, there seems to be a bit of a disconnect between the beginning of your presentation where you talked about what matters most to your community, which was climate change, road safety improvements for all road users, and what you've ended up with, which is 3 minor roading projects, which is one intersection and 2 other minor roading projects, and a heritage one as your board priorities. And I'm just wondering if you could talk through where you've fitted in the other stuff that the community said was most important, like climate change and stuff.
Yeah.
And where you see council's role in that.
Yeah, that's I guess one of the things I should say that with the What Matters Most campaign, when we got those results, that was sort of near the end when we were finalising our priorities. This is the priorities we've listed of things that have been on the hearts and minds of our community for quite a long time. That's not to say that we are neglecting or not taking into account the importance of climate change to our community. I think for us, what would be really good as a board and part of the engagement process is to actually get in touch with Katie McRae's team and the engagement team and actually get into more detail around what exactly around climate change our community is wanting to see. What does that look like? Because of course, there are different parts that impact climate, whether it is from a social perspective around climate action, or whether it is around transport, or whether it's about our environment. We do have some other priorities on our board plan around environment with the stream and other priorities that impact the environment that do connect back to climate. But I take your point, but I guess for us as a board, we're just trying to be really conscious that there isn't a lot of money. It's really about making sure that we hit the things that have been coming to us regularly around what our community really wants. But that doesn't mean we are neglecting or we don't believe climate change is important.
Okay, yeah, just seemed a weird disconnect, but thanks.
But I think safer roads means that children are more likely to use them instead of being in a car.
And the flooding issue obviously relates to that as well.
Yeah. Kia ora. Councillor Harrison Hunt.
Kia ora. I've just got a question about the bathhouse and the better off funding that you're thinking about putting in.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how much you're thinking about.
Yeah, so I can give you a bit of info around how much it's looking like it's what's been put aside for the LTP. So that's around 700,000, but that's not finalised. There needs to be more scoping done around what that number is. So as a board, we haven't set on what exactly we're going to contribute because we'd like to know what that number is before we do. But again, we have to make sure that we balance that better off funding with other projects in the ward as well. But it's definitely something we're going to contribute, and we want to make sure that it's an amount that can really help push the project forward for sure.
Sure. Okay. No, that's cool. Thanks so much. The other questions have been answered. Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you. So just on the bathhouse, so I mean, you sort of point out that there's a lot of community support and sort of fundraising and all that sort of stuff. Have you ever thought about sort of harnessing that and doing what we sort of call doing a governor's bay jetty on that one, which is basically like the community just take the asset, do all the fundraising, organise it all, get it built, and and it gets done quickly and under budget. You could save yourself a whole bunch of money. And if the Governor's Bay community have got the skills to do that, I'm pretty sure Fendleton has got it. So I'm just kind of wondering if that's not
that
something
would
you've thought
involve
about.
actually setting up a trust if there isn't already one around Mona Vale, and it does work. We could look at that as well, and council could also be a contributor.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we that's another conversation we need to have with the Friends of the Botanic Gardens. But that's definitely something we can think about. Yeah.
Do you mind if I very quickly jump in there with that one? Sorry, guys, but totally agree with you, Tyrone. And that's the exact conversation that I've had with the Friends of the Botanic Gardens Associations. So they're really keen for that. There are some complications, obviously, because the bathhouse is part of Mona Vale. So we've just got to be, mindful about how we sort of structure that, because you can't sort of sell Mona Vale and then get them to do it and then take it back. But there must be an element or an ability for us to work with staff. So perhaps that association could take over the rebuild themselves and have some ownership in it, given that they've done a significant amount of fundraising and there's goodwill in the community there. And then we're left with the end product, which I think would be a win-win for all parties.
Excellent. Well,
cool. Thanks, James.
We'll make a note of that and get some staff involvement with some ideas and see if we can progress it. Okay. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Like to welcome Waipuna, Horswell, Hornby, Riccarton. Morena, Helen and Marie. Okay, fire away.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about the draft 2024-2034 long-term plan. I'm very pleased to present this on behalf of the Waipuna, Horswell, Hornby, Riccarton Community Board. I'm handing over now to Marie for a while. Thank you.
Yes, now during the What Matters Most campaign, members of the Waipuna Community Board were actively involved and supported by our local governance team to speak to our community directly. We attended a wide range of engagement events held at the variety of locations such as Riccarton Mall, Hornby Matatiki Market, and pop-up stalls at service centers. There were 621 participants that voted in our ward as part of this campaign. We've come up with the results came up with the top 5 core services for the Waipuna, Horswell, Hornby, Riccarton ward in the order of the climate change, drinking water, roads and footpaths, travel choice, and parks and gardens. I note that it is quite similar to the previous community boards that have presented. Same top 5, except the last 2 for the Fendleton, Waimairi, Harewood, but the same order with the Papanui in East Central. Now, the pressing issue of community facilities is evident as local groups struggle to secure suitable spaces for their activities. In response to a growing concern within our community, we have identified a pressing issue: the struggle to find suitable community spaces for our local groups. This challenge is visibly impacting the ability of numerous organizations, including Men's Shed, Grannies, Tongan Youth Trust, Greater Hornby Residents Association, the Flourish Muslim After School Program, Fiji Social Services, and Jesus Christ the Rock Christian Ministries to secure spaces for their essential activities. Many of these groups have taken the initiative to identify potential council-owned properties as potential solutions to these problems, such as the Gilbert Thorpes and our Yalders Memorial Hall. However, navigating the complexities of securing and maintaining these spaces while ensuring sustainability and cost effectiveness is actually a formidable task. Fortunately, our community board is keenly aware of this issue and is dedicated to supporting the search for appropriate spaces in a manner that is both sustainable and cost-effective. We acknowledge that this is a challenging endeavor, but we are committed to working collaboratively with the community and local organizations to find viable solutions that address their needs. Our aim is to foster a thriving community where these valuable groups can continue their essential work, enriching the lives of our residents. Through strategic planning, resource allocation, and active engagement with all stakeholders, we aspire to overcome this challenge, ensure that our community spaces are accessible, accommodating, and sustainable for years to come.
Thank you. Thank you. Our community has been active in voicing concerns about road safety and safety matters in general, underscoring the importance of addressing issues such as speeding, enhancing safer crossings, parking restrictions, and establishing new safety measures. In fact, many of our board meetings are dealing purely with traffic issues. In our community, voices of residents have raised concerns about road safety and overall safety matters, emphasising the critical need for action. This collective concern underscores the importance of addressing issues like speeding, enhancing safer pedestrian crossings, and implementing innovative safety measures. Our board, in close collaboration with the local governance team, has been actively championing initiatives aimed at these concerns. Some initiatives include the impactful Hornby Community Safety Meeting and providing crucial funding to support the Hornby Community Safety Patrol. So in alignment with our community's values and its aspirations is a central pillar of our vision statement embedded within our community board. We recognise that safety is a cornerstone of a thriving, cohesive community, and we are dedicated to prioritising the development and implementation of strategies and measures that not only enhance safety, but also contribute to the overall quality of life in our community. And we're in our board is a high growth board. In Horseville, we have subdivisions. In Hornby, we have residential living along with industry. And in Riccarton, we're dealing with intensification. So if I could now move to our priority projects, and I'll just deal with Horseville, then hand back to, in fact, Marie. One of our priorities for our board for Horseville is that the new pedestrian connections to link subdivisions in Horseville. As Horseville experienced significant growth with the emergence of new housing and infrastructure projects, a pressing issue has come to the forefront: the absence of adequate footpaths to connect these burgeoning subdivisions. While development has brought changes to our community, the lack of interconnecting footpaths poses a critical challenge that needs urgent attention. This is one of the board priorities in the board plan for 2023-2025, advocating for safe, accessible pedestrian connections to significant community destinations in the Horseville ward. The problem lies in the disconnect between these newly established subdivisions. Without proper footpaths, residents face difficulties in accessing essential amenities, public transportation, schools, and recreational spaces. Pedestrian safety is compromised as individuals are forced to navigate busy roads or uneven terrain, endangering both drivers and pedestrians. Connecting footpaths are vital to address this for several reasons. Firstly, they promote walkability, encouraging residents to embrace healthier lifestyles. This in turn reduces traffic congestion and contributes to a greener, more sustainable environment. Secondly, footpaths enhance community cohesion by fostering social interactions among residents. They provide safe spaces for neighbours to connect, children to play, and families to enjoy the outdoors together. And I'll hand back to Marie.
Just to clarify, we are presenting 3 community board priorities, and we have identified them according to ward. So we have one for Holswell, one for Hornby, and then one for Riccarton. So what Helen, the chair, has just talked about was just Holswell, and now I'm going to the Hornby priority.
I'm sorry, you were meant to do Holswell. Yes. Sorry about that.
Because I do.
Sorry about that.
I represent Holswell, so
So you ask questions later. Sorry.
So now this is for the Hornby. Development and delivery of a Hornby master plan. So we are requesting that a master planning process is initiated for Hornby, commencing within the area around the Hornby Hub business environs. This is one of the board's priority actions in the board plan for 2023 to 2025. Hornby is a well-established community where over time a range of developments have occurred independently of each other. With the development of the Matatiki Center and the implementation of major cycle routes to connect the community, it is timely to develop a master plan to ensure the community is well connected and that any future developments are well thought out. We would like to see the council prioritize working with planners and developers to implement elements of the master plan. Something probably similar to that of the Southwest Christchurch area plan that we had back in 2009. Now, we would also like to see the council work with agencies and community partners to develop hubs of connectedness in Hornby, starting with a pedestrian link between the Hornby Mega Center and Hornby Hub on Main South Road. I pass on to Helen about Riccarton.
Yes. So for Riccarton, we're advocating for the revitalisation of Sockburn Park to provide outlets for young people to be safe with a sense of belonging. The main objective of this is to provide the board and our community with a safe and engaging recreation area designed specifically for our younger residents. By investing in the revitalisation of Sockburn Park, we aim to promote physical and mental health, nurture social connections, offer constructive outlets for youthful energy and create creativity, curtail antisocial behaviour, and sow the seeds of a prosperous future for our community. Now, the background to Sockburn Park has held importance in the past. It was the former site of the Sockburn Pool, along with a toddler swimming pool and barbecue area, and Sockburn Hall. Unfortunately, neglect has rendered these facilities derelict, leaving behind a blight that impacts the local landscape. The removal of the pool pre-earthquake further exacerbated the park's decline, and the Sockburn Service Centre's disarray opposite only compounds the issue. As it stands, Sockburn Park has become an eyesore. While some minor improvements such as new fencing have been undertaken to enhance safety, the park's potential remains largely untapped. It's situated on the boundary between Hornby and Riccarton. Sockburn Park serves as a vital hub connecting two distinct communities. Moreover, it boasts proximity to 4 schools within a 1 kilometre radius, as well as 2 early learning centres, highlighting its significance as a recreational asset for our younger residents. So we're asking for this, just mentioning the suburban area behind the park has moved between the Hornby and Riccarton wards. So it's now in Riccarton. It's been very quiet, that area. It's where Tyler lives. It's been very quiet to date in coming to the board regarding concerns and needs. So I just think it's just been quiet, and therefore it's been left to some extent. So I really advocate that we look at doing something on Sockburn Park. So there's probably some questions. So I'll
Yeah,
just
you have
leave
actually
things
used a
here
lot of
and ask
time up,
for
but
and thank you for your
yeah,
time.
I'm happy to take two. We've got Councillor Peters and Councillor Henstock. If we could be quite efficient with our questions, would be helpful.
Thank you. I'll just touch on the Hornby Master Plan and some of the vision around that. And just one of the big things I think we see there is the connectivity of footpaths and cycleways and all of the traffic through that area. So would you agree that it would be good to get some better travel choices dreamt through that process so that we can better connect our communities north to south?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Cool. And then, of course, you'll be excited to see your Maratiki Hornby Centre coming online next year. So, and with that, then one of your priorities, I think, in your board was around landing the old library building into the community centre. Is that true?
Yes, that's the sorry,
the old library.
The old library, yes,
being
yes.
passed on to the community.
Yes, it is going to be passed on to the community.
Yeah, very good. And then I guess with that as well, there's a number of other traffic priorities that you sort of hinted on that I guess will be important to bring through into this long-term plan as well. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, it would be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just add that we just put through 3 projects. We did this without the benefit of the capital program going forward. So that's coming to the board on the 24th of October. You're starting it on the 17th. So to some extent, we're putting through 3 projects, but we didn't have in front of us a potential capital program.
I'm just going to have John Fussell's going to actually just comment on that.
Sorry?
Briefly, Helen. John Fussell will comment. Thank you, John.
Sorry to butt in. Just so, and I feel it important to say, just so there's no confusion, we're saying if all goes well, we are anticipating at around this date, but it is not formally, the capital program is not formally coming to the board on a set date. Can I just make that really clear? It'll be when it's ready, after the councillors had a look.
Yes,
So,
after you've had a look.
Yeah,
okay.
Just want to make that really clear.
Thank you, John.
So there will be traffic projects in that which we want to have.
Yep, thank you.
Hold on to.
Councillor Henstock.
Actually, my question was following on from that, so you may not be able to answer it because of course I noted that all of these are new projects. So I was keen to know what was already in your plan, in your long-term plan, what funding was on budget, and perhaps more importantly, whether any of those you think need to be deferred in order that these things can take priority, or whether things are to be shelved.
Well, I'm sure that will emerge during the process.
Yes, that's something once we've got the capital program, we can.
This has really taken quite a lot of time. Have you got a very quick question?
These are the 3 things we've put forward. New projects.
Yeah, Helen, I've got to.
Yeah, it's just very quick. Can we urgently get some advice over new subdivisions requirement to put footpaths on both sides of the road and connectivity? Because this has been raised repeatedly for
I agree, and that
20
came up
years.
with the Redcliffe Road one. I mean, that new subdivision there with no crossing point to the mall.
So we need to change
We're
our
gonna pick
infrastructure
that tab
design
up.
standards as
Yep,
soon as
we've got
possible
that. Have you got
and
that,
talk
Neil?
to
Well,
subdivisions.
it's not just the developers. The issue here is we've got a council that has a $0 budget for new footpaths. So they're not being connected. The subdivisions aren't.
Yeah,
being
it's a combination of both, right? I accept
yeah,
that.
it is 100%. Yeah,
But allowing developers
Well, I
not to
think
build
Councillor
footpaths
Johansson's
is
talking
crazy.
about where does the responsibility lie. All right,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So welcome to Te Pātaka or Rakaya Hotu. I'm sorry, I've got to practice that one. Thanks, Peninsula. Rakai Hotu.
You did well.
Oh no, I didn't.
This
That's
is
terrible. Rakai Hotu. Welcome.
Morena, good councillors, and deputy chair, and
Morena.
other elected members and staff. Welcome. This is Nigel beside me here.
Some of you know me, some of you know me too well.
All right, let's dig in. Looking at the PowerPoint, we can see, well, the first page actually was Long Bay, I think. If you go back.
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful Long Bay and Banks Peninsula. So we're going to what we've heard from the community And number one point here is that proactive planning for climate change. So just take the special note of the word proactive, because that's really vital here. I think that's the important thing to note, is about the action of that. The proactive planning for climate change includes flood mitigation in particular, but not exclusively on the artery for State Highway 75. Closures leave the peninsula so vulnerable. The need to investigate and identify where problem spots are and support workshopping solutions by relevant agencies is vital. Improving infrastructure to support community resilience from fires, flooding, erosion slips, and the list goes on. Planning and scoping can help prevent bigger issues. It's the ambulance at the top of the cliff here. Number two, cruise and destination management plan. We have heard the community voice during the destination plan process, and we heard that regenerative tourism is a top priority and needs help in implementation across the local tourism sector. Allocating assistance via a local RTO representative could provide support. Number three, antisocial road users. While working closely with police and community shows that this issue has no silver bullet. With help of innovations and changes in legislation, this can be improved. Number four, protect and enhance biodiversity. 70% of the land area of Christchurch City is Banks Peninsula, and most of this is rural. There is a staggering amount of potential that can be unlocked here. And it's exciting potential. I'm looking forward to going more into it. Now, page 2 of our PowerPoint, Nigel will continue with.
Yeah, we have here a table on page 2 that states what the priority is it currently funded, and where does it sit in the current LTP submission situation. Flooding of rural nature, rural origin. Look, we're all getting hit with these severe weather events and trying to deal with the water and volume coming down from those hills and getting it through the drains, and how we mitigate and work to minimise the issues around the severe weather events, and obviously some inundation issues as well. Obviously the cottage refurbishment pops up there, and it's a nice visual picture there at a high tide with a severe weather event, which is happening roughly 2 times a year now. Also, there's a picture there of the Coronation Library in Little River that's actually getting some work done to it, and the state of a road. The roads are getting washed out on a regular basis, and we thank the response the council have given in the latest events. They've been very on the ball in the way they cleared the roads, got rid of the trees and the slips. It's been very, very good, and thank you very much. But it's a huge issue for us, safeguarding the rural roads, and review residents' expectations for rural roads. Target the future betterment of opportunities for rural roads. Weather emergency response. There's a lot of response plans being developed around different communities. Some are moving quicker than others. Some are sort of not organised. Those things need to be thought about in the LTP. And to keep improvements on budget. We have got some big stuff on projects going on over on the peninsula. Obviously, Naval Point and Akaroa Wharf are very much there in our uppermost in our minds, and to see that continuance of those projects. Thank you.
So at the heart of it, Banks Peninsula's priorities are about protection, not in a way that's insular, but in a way that allows us to be what we are, excuse me, what we are in the best possible way. These priorities help us to be better for us and others through the way we contribute to the economy, the way we host visitors, the way we uphold our treaty responsibilities and relationships, and the way we care for people. And the heart of this is good, and we need support to do this. The smart move here is to invest in Banks Peninsula, and this is an investment with a real return. Kia ora, mā te wā.
Kia ora.
Thank you.
Oh, well done. Do we have any questions? Councillor Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Deputy Mayor. First of all, I just want to wish Nigel a happy birthday for the last weekend.
Yes.
Hit the big 7-0, didn't you, Nigel? So well done. That was we threw a bit of a party for you.
What a party I
Yeah.
had. 780 people. Good.
Even the mayor showed up. So thanks for that wrap up there, Lynn. I sort of like, just if I just sort of dig into that a little bit more, because well, I mean, what I see from all of these things is that more and more Banks Peninsula is starting to sort of blossom as this huge economic opportunity, and the ability to be able to the ability to be able to access it and to get around it is becoming more and more important. Is that kind of how you're seeing it as well?
To completely, yes, I would have said exactly the same thing. It is about giving that potential, because you can see the potential there, and there's a lot of other people are seeing that potential too. Lots of big industries and companies, and so it is about protection. Yeah.
Look, it's a no-brainer when it comes to the environment and the carbon emissions. You know, the regrowth over there is helping Christchurch, Greater Christchurch, reach its targets. But also from a tourist and heritage perspective, people that go to Akaroa have to come through Christchurch generally, unless they come in on a cruise ship and then come to Christchurch. But I think Banks Peninsula has got that potential to be the rose and the flower on the rose.
I mean, a destination Christchurch kind of means destination Banks Peninsula, really, doesn't it?
Pretty much.
Oh, here we go.
Pretty much.
I just think councillors
One
need to be
sits
very
beautifully with the other.
careful about leading questions. Let's not have too many. Councillor Harrison Hunt. Thank you, Councillor Fields.
Kia ora. Can we go back to the board projects? Yeah. In my eyes, I don't see those top two negotiable personally. But the third one, I just want to know a bit more about Naval Point and Akaroa Wharf. Can you talk to me about those?
Well, I'll talk to you about Akaroa Wharf. It's a huge safety issue.
Yeah,
I know it's a pain in the bum for it's in the LTP.
Yeah.
We want it to stay there. Don't want it to slow down. It's slowed down a little bit over the last year or so with some of the difficult consultation process. But it is actually a hazard that will fall down if it's not fixed.
Gotcha.
Okay. As for Naval Point, that's just a wonderful resource. I know that requires money, but as a resource going forward, we saw how the sales GP got a buzz out of that, and it's, as a facility, it will help dress Littleton nicely.
Of course. And Naval Point?
Yeah, Naval Point, different phases. So there's been some phases that have been completed, and there needs to be continued momentum with that, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. And is that also safety issues in regards to the Naval Point? Okay.
Not that I'm aware of, but I could find out.
Yeah, you've got the old posts to come out. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I did see a deputation from a couple of members talking about that.
The old
breakwater
marina, I
bit.
think.
Yeah. Okay, clear. No, that's cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great job.
Nice to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, good. Drive home now. Thanks, guys.
Go.
Cheers.
Waitai.
Paradise.
Yeah, paradise.
Waitai Coastal Burwood Linwood. Welcome, Paul and Jackie.
I know. Hello.
Kia ora.
Right.
Over to you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor and councillors. We appreciate this opportunity to come and talk to you before you have finished deliberating on the draft. We understand that there's immense financial pressure on the council and every council when it comes to the long-term plan, and there is a bump to get over financial year 26. In general, the problem that I think that faces the council is no different from every LTP. Yes, you have reduced headroom and cost pressures, which are different in scale, but not in nature to what every council faces. It's by no means as dire as 2015. We accept that there is not much space for new spending before financial year 27. When we come to our long-term plan submission, and in the coming months, we'll work to identify things which may be deferred or deleted, but we don't have enough information yet to really form a hypothesis. So in terms of what we've heard from the community, and this is by a variety of means, but these are things that kind of keep coming up for us. So firstly, and this is mainly a Linwood issue, but I know that's an issue, for instance, in Hornby as well, the industrial residential plan change. We need a buffer area around industrial areas. We have some major environmental equity issues in our area, especially in Bromley and Woolston. The operative district plan does not have a transitional border between residential and industrial areas and does not have rules around container heights, which are really necessary. And I understand that this would cost about $120,000 to develop a plan change. I think that you need to allocate funding specifically for it rather than it being tied up in BAU. Next, there's a New Brighton master plan, which is a big priority for our coastal members, and would need about $3 million in partnership with the Canterbury Earthquake Appeals Trust and private developers to get that done. And this is a plan which is, after many years, and some might say 30 years, finally we have something that is viable for regenerating New Brighton as a destination rather than going back to the way things were before Sunday trading was everywhere. It's a really good plan. So there's $2 million from the Canterbury Earthquake Appeals Trust, but the council also needs to come to the party. There is money in the budget also for strategic land acquisition. And then next, in Burwood, the Maireho Road, Burwood Road intersection is a priority. We need the $2.4 million as was in the draft annual plan, but it was deferred. I don't really think it should have been. It's a dangerous and busy intersection by the hospital. We've had correspondence and deputations about it. It is a matter of concern for that community and everybody who travels through it. And finally, a plug in general for residential street renewals. We're wrapped that we have street renewals happening in North Linwood and improvements in Bromley, funded from Surf and Craft, and these definitely need to be completed. And once we're over that fiscal bump in the road after financial year 26, we'd like to see more of these renewals and safety improvements of residential streets. These are the kind of things, the small changes that improve amenity and safety and are essential to enhancing people's sense of well-being. Post-quakes, a whole lot of these kinds of things were indefinitely deferred or cancelled by necessity. We know the council does a lot and has invested an immense amount, especially below ground in our area. Most people don't have any idea about that, and what they see every day is their own street and their neighbourhoods. Street renewals and safety, improving where people live, is probably the best thing the council can do to improve relationships with our communities. In terms of priority areas for these, it should be areas proposed for intensification, like the Eastgate high density residential zone that's proposed, and this must also include pocket parks. And then areas like New Brighton, Bromley and North Linwood, which have big wide roads which encourage people to drive fast. And then in terms of other priorities, obviously the organics processing plant. I won't bang that drum too hard. You know what we think. It needs to get done, needs to prioritise closing that plant and ending the suffering of those people. And a small plug alongside that for the wastewater treatment plant repair and hopefully an upgrade. If we want to really stop the stink, we need to improve the technology that we're using rather than returning to the status quo ex ante before the fire. We also are supportive of the new Preston's area having a Marshlands Hall, which was lost. And there's a whole bunch of people, as Kelly will tell you, who are red zoned, who have moved down in that area and want a community facility. Marshlands Hall Trust has $1 million and will continue to fundraise. So after we're over that bump, they'll need about $2 to $4 million for that. And there's the cheaper option will be using some existing council land rather than purchasing land from a developer. And also, we would like the earthquake legacy projects such as the Pages Road Bridge and their estuary edge completed, along with things like the stormwater basins in Waitaki Basin and the Kaienga Basin, which are both immensely expensive projects, but which really need doing. And a plug, and it's not on the list, but for the Lower Heathcote Guidance Plan implementation. So this should really be guiding all the work along the catchment. It should be integrated within all the projects. It means putting little bits of funding alongside within existing projects to give effect to the plan. And we're definitely in support of what Waihoro said around partnering with the Opawahu Heathcote River Network. And I think that brings us to the end. Just a few notes from what other people said. We don't want the MCRs deferred either, especially not on the two river routes. And yes, we definitely support strengthening communities funding. So, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor McClellan.
Back to your slide in terms of requests, the Mighty Ho intersection, was that delayed because of the surf craft works, or?
I don't know the reason it was delayed. I just know that it was in the draft annual plan and then it was not in the plan.
Okay.
So it's
and the residential, the industrial residential interface, really feel for you there. Are you suggesting, I was interested in your point that we could put money on budget specifically for that piece of work. Are you suggesting we could do that work any quicker if we were to do that? My understanding is that staff resource, I mean, as staff are responding to PC, to plan change 14. I'm not sure how we could magic up any plans.
I understand that, that within existing capacity, what I'm suggesting is that money be put in to allocate money to funding a consultant or something like that to prepare a plan.
Right. So, right, it's money.
Additional resource.
I'm not sure. I think we'd struggle to even find a consultant at the moment in the current work environment, but it's worth exploring anyway.
I'm being optimistic.
Councillor Johansson.
Yeah, just to highlight that my understanding is from the Finance and Performance Committee financial reporting that we're underspent in that budget. So it's not a money issue. We've got lots of money. We haven't spent the money we've got in that budget. So, I mean, I support this getting done. Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, I think it would be good for council to start thinking about ways it can try and progress it quicker than it has, because the impact has been really bad on people. And you've seen people from Bromley.
Yep.
So,
and I'm also well aware that there's existing use rights. So we're not going to fix the existing problems. We just want to stop new problems from arising.
Yeah, and just the other kind of feedback around that is like, I'm really concerned that some of the craft, because of the delays to the craft projects, the budgets are going to be insufficient to do the work that we need to do around things like street renewals. So I just wonder, and it's kind of the point that.
So do you want to put that through as a question?
Well, yeah, but it's kind of just tagging into what the point that was raised with the Spraydon Cashmere Heathcote board around that kind of growth thing. So the kind of question, I don't know, I think you heard the deputation that they made. Would you think that if council's considering how it responds to the intensification and growth, that we should also be considering something around in your board area?
Well, as specifically mentioned, the East Gate. If that goes forward, we're going to need a lot of support to ensure that those streets are suitable, and particularly needing green space.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
So a bit of a high level connection between our planning and the intensification.
Yep. Councillor Templeton.
Thanks. I know that we're talking a lot about these four here, but they're actually, while you've talked through them, when we're looking at our overall board priority stuff, that's not what you put up as your priorities. That's what you've heard from the community. And the next slide is the ones that the board have specifically called out. I'm just for when we process things.
Yeah.
I know they're all important.
Yeah.
But
so these are from our board priorities, which is stuff that we have heard from the community.
Yeah. But when it comes to when we're assessing, and we're asking staff to go, right, which of the board priorities that they came and presented to us have we managed to fit in, which not, and info and why, the ones that you're most important are the ones that you've called out as your board priorities. Is that right?
So these, the organics processing plant, obviously, and in the Burwood ward, this is the what has emerged as a board priority. And in the coastal.
I'm just checking for process wise. I know that's all important, and it's a common themes with other stuff too.
Well, we just tried to fit in all the things that were important.
I know. And did you have the opportunity to have a look at the what matters most stuff ahead of doing this?
Yes, we were presented as board chairs and deputies.
Yeah.
The big one that emerged, and it's different from
It is quite
some of the
different.
other
Yeah, yeah.
areas, but it's climate change emerges really as dealing with the flooding. And
Yeah.
I was remiss in not mentioning Tenby Place,
Yeah, that's right.
which really needs resolving.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons you touch on the stormwater basin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
Thank you.
flooding issues and surface water issues.
You've got
big
that.
priority.
Thanks. Climate change. Councillor Henstock, final question.
My questions have been answered. Thanks.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Nice to see you as usual.
Thank you.
So I think that that's the end of the recording. Is that now? We turned it off.